Hello, John Cleese here for Schweppes.
AM-750, WSB 15 away from 2 o'clock. And West Minter hanging in here with Dr. Charles King until 3. Open it up at 3 o'clock. Our phone number 872-0750 or toll-free 1-800-WSB-TALK. A few moments ago, in fact, in one of the breaks, Dr. King was telling me some statistics that most of the crime, we were talking about the inner city, most of the crime is committed by young people between the ages of 16 and 24 years old, and the majority of those, correct me, was it 90% you said, have dropped out of school?
90% of high school dropouts.
Now, my question is, how can we keep those people in school focused to become productive in society as opposed to going to prison?
By changing white institutions. I'd rather talk about not so much what we can do for black people, but what white people must do, what white society must do. You see, what happens is they catch us like this and they say, what can we do to help the black kids? And we're supposed to provide all kind of expertise on how to provide things for blacks. I don't do that. There are black people that work providing
real well with them, huh?
For the needs of black people.
I guess.
As a matter of fact, all blacks do this. Most blacks are busy trying to find ways of making it possible to survive in a dominant white culture. What I do, dominantly, is to try to make white people understand that they are responsible for the condition under which black people live. Totally responsible. Now, that's not just me saying this. As you know, or you probably know, in my book I've written, I was a member of President Lyndon Johnson's Commission on Civil Disorders.
Right.
It was our job to go around this country to find out what created black anger, what led to black despair, why crime, why poverty, why welfare, why were our cities burning with all the looting and carrying on. The commission brought back a report that I want to quote to you, and I hope somehow that you never forget why I do what I'm doing. And this is a quote from the commission. You have it there? Do you remember?
I didn't. I don't have the quote up there. I was going to ask you about the state of being question, but
here it is.
That's okay.
Mr. President, we said to Lyndon Baines Johnson, what white society has never really understood, that white society is deeply implicated in our nation's ghetto. White institutions created it. White institutions maintain it. And white institutions condone it. And I have made it my life's work by writing, by lecturing, by appearing in public to remind white society that this is their baby, not ours. And we bear the brunt of it.
And since the Civil Rights Act...
I deal with cause of the problem, and I'm tired of talking about the consequences.
What's the solution to the problem?
White society must understand and change.
But one of those changes that I have seen in the last few years has been throwing more money through federal legislation.
Don't say that, please. Don't say that. That's another conservative statement that you stereotype to mean that money means nothing. Money means everything. As a matter of fact, the other recommendation to the commission was this. If this country is to change, there are 3 things that must be accomplished. 2 things, at least. Number 1, the ghetto must be enriched, which means millions of dollars should be poured into our inner cities to bring them up to standards.
It's been more like billions.
So that people can have an equal opportunity. Number 2, our society must desegregate as quickly as possible. Number 3 is the combination of number 1 and number 2. And unless number 1 and 2 takes place simultaneously, we are doomed. And I'm here to declare to you that until we start putting billions of dollars into our inner city, not millions, billions of dollars, if we can send 400,000 soldiers overseas to protect oil, then we can spend that kind of money to protect black people in our inner cities, as well as Indians on reservations and Asians in their conclaves. Why can't we put all that money into people instead of oil and things and preparing for war.
Okay, we're going to take another break here in a moment. Let me read you something, and this is from somebody else. He's a city council person in Detroit, city you're going to be visiting. His name is Reverend Keith Butler. He's on the city council up there. If what you're saying is the solution, then what I'm going to quote you here is what he said isn't right. He says that the federal government has spent more
Number one, I don't want to hear it. You know why?
Why?
He's a city councilman, and I'm here, the expert on this thing. And you're going, what do I...
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you. He's a black city councilman.
I know that. Don't pit us against each other.
I'm giving you a statistic that refutes what you just said, and you don't want to hear it.
So what? Who do you believe?
I'm not sure right now.
There you go.
No, I've got a figure here that...
You're not sure right now. I was on a commission. This is the government report I'm giving you.
And I'm not refuting
it. And what you're doing is you're taking one black city council's word that refutes that to knock down what I just told you. For shame. I deserve more respect than that.
We'll be back after this update on the weather with Kirk Mellish. At this hour. That's what it's all about. 6 away from 2 here on AM-750 WSB. Dr. Charles King is here, and Jay in Roswell. You're in the air everywhere. How you doing?
Oh, Wes, this guy's got my tail feathers ruffled.
Well, be brief, please.
I will. Dr. King, I'm going to make a statement, then I got a question for you. I heard you say a few minutes ago that really upset me that I am responsible for the black living conditions.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
I said white society is responsible.
My society, white society is responsible for that. It's my fault that 1 out of 4 black people go to jail. It's my fault that 1 out of 5 only make it to college. It's my fault. It's white society's fault that majority of the drug dealers and drug users in Atlanta and across this nation are black. I don't think that's my responsibility. I do not think it's my race's fault. You are nothing but a racist trying to turn America against me, and this quota system that you've got, that you want to have passed, that is racist. And that's what's going to tear this country apart, mister. I want you to think about that, and I want you to think about it hard, mister, because that kind of thought is going to ruin the hell out of this damn country. I do not know who brainwashed you, mister, but they did a damn good job.
Any response?
Why don't you respond to him? Why don't you tell him what he said?
Well, I don't think you're racist.
No,
you haven't said anything today that's racist.
You think a lot of what I'm saying, right? Tell him where he's wrong. Why should I fight my own battle?
Oh, you don't have to. I just asked you if you had a response.
Why should I respond to somebody like that?
Richard in Marietta, first-time caller on AM-750 WSB. Hold on, what's that?
Black people are always forced to fight their own battle. White people will not raise their voice to affirm us. And every time I go on a radio program, and people who are that limited in terms of intellect, in terms of understanding, you know enough to refute what he said, but you maintain your peace because you must keep this controversial.
Richard.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I agree with Jay. I can't help it. But
well, why don't you have a question? Do you have a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to know why. Why is it the white people flee the city? Why is it the white people don't want the black in the neighborhoods? There's got to be a reason. Nobody's ever addressed that.
All right, Dr. King, why was there white flight?
They're fearful of black presence. Every sociologist and psychologist that study the problem of race means that white people are fearful of blacks, of the unknown, different culture, different people. It's a sexual fear as well. Black men, white females. And that's been studied out to understand why we have separation of races. That's the reason why. Because we don't mix and mingle like other minorities do. The darker the shade of the color, the more the fear that white society has. Now, your previous caller got very upset. You see, what he did was he personalized this thing. I didn't. And that's how he gets away with it. But now, suppose we change that I back to white society. Wouldn't he then be able to see that society's inability to provide equitable treatment to black people historically is responsible for school segregation, which was segregated by law? Can he not see and agree that that's what caused the problem? Now, how he gets away from that is to foolishly say, I didn't cause this. Of course he didn't. But that's the only way he can argue, by making it personal instead of dealing with it from a societal standpoint. And then you must agree, the problems of black people in America stems from white institutions, white traditions, white culture that applies mainly to them and not to anyone else. It's the same thing with problems with women. The problems that women have stem from sexism. That's why they have problems in our culture. It's demands of the white male upon the white female to perform and to live up to the standards that they want, not necessarily what women want to do for themselves. Just as that is true for women, it is also true for blacks. And anyone who can't see that is foolish.
We're going to have more calls for Dr. Charles King coming up in the hour ahead. Our phone number, 872-0750, or toll-free, 1-800-WSB-TALK. A lot of people gather around watching, a lot of people shaking their heads. You may not agree, but there is one thing you will agree on, that Dr. Charles King will get you thinking on the issue of race and race relations in this country. I'm Wes Minter. Coming up today at 4 o'clock, Gary McKee, Paul Gonzalez, tonight on Atlanta's undisputed champion for stimulating talk, AM-750 WSB. A whole Wednesday, 5 December 1990. Having already completed 1 hour with a very well-respected management consultant and civil rights expert, Dr. Charles King, we head into hour number 2 with your calls. Local phone number is 872-0750, toll-free 1-800-WSB-TALK. Right before we went on the air, Dr. King was telling me that one distinction he makes from like doing a radio talk show to his seminars all across the country, and I think it's worth pointing out again, Dr. King, is that when you do a seminar, you're pretty much in control.
Yes.
You're sitting over there, we've got the calls over here, you don't know who's calling in here, so it's a little different environment for you, isn't it?
Totally different.
Yeah. So I want people to understand that when you do a seminar...
The other thing is, when I do a seminar, like the last guy that left,
right.
If he was in a seminar, at the end of the seminar, he would understand and would agree with what I'm saying. I would have been able to make him see the error, just like I explained to you, he was substituting himself for society.
Right.
Not only that, but other whites in the group would also see that and would so inform him of that they now see this. And then he would, for the first time, he would begin to understand what blacks are talking about.
Yeah, I don't think people should get the wrong perception here. You're not a confrontational person, but you use this in the beginning to break down barriers.
No, I am a confrontational person, particularly on the subject of race. But the point is, what I've trained myself to do is to fight racism verbally. You know, I don't like doing what I do because I know it hurts. Sometimes it embarrasses some people. But the only way for me ever to understand, let me tell you, I explained this in my book how I started doing this. So maybe this, if I tell this story, maybe it would help people understand. I was teaching at Wittenberg University in Springfield, Ohio, middle class, dominantly white Lutheran college. I had 52 white students in my class. And every time I would explain something about, I was teaching black history and urban affairs. And every time I would explain something about black people, I would always get a rebuttal, like someone, but that's not so, like you and I started off. If I say something about black people, you'd say, yeah, but so, and this is true of most black people. Whenever black people start explaining something about black people, they always get a rebuttal. We are never left to explain something in its fullness without having a white person to interrupt and say, yes, but we call it intellectualizing. And then we'd have to stop and listen to what they say, and now you have an argument. I got so frustrated doing that one day I just said, shut up, no more. You're going to listen to me. Because if you're going to understand me, you've got to keep quiet and listen. So I instituted a control. I went back and I locked the door. I said, nobody leaves for another half hour because when I get finished talking, you will have understood what I've been talking about. They kept quiet and they listened. And I went at them. And every time they tried, I'd jump them. I became so emotionally wrapped up in doing that I broke down and began crying. I wept.
You did?
Yes. And because I knew I was oppressing. I knew that I was forcing something on people that they hadn't looked for that. And I was just saying, shut up, sit down. And that's not my nature to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's what I meant when I said conference. You don't come off that way in person.
I went to my office. I sat down. And Dr. Robert Cutler, my boss, had been monitoring my class that day, and I didn't know it. That's the man who hired me. And this is an all-white institution.
He picked that day.
Yes. He says, Dr. King, he says, I was in your class when you went through your class. I said, oh, my God. I know I was fired. He said, we talked about what you did when you left your class. We want you to go back to your classroom. Go back to your classroom. I said, I don't want to go back there, Bob. He said, go back to your classroom because the students have something they want to say to you. I went back to the classroom. I opened the door. They hugged me. They consoled me. They did everything they could to let me know, hey, we're sorry. We're sorry. And I said, what's going on here? One of the seniors of the class said, Doctor, he said, we discussed what you just did. And we discovered something, that the only time that we paid attention to anything you said was when you said it with emotions, was when you pushed it out as it made us take it. Other than that, we intellectualized it. But you pushed it into our gut until we felt it. And after we felt it, we finally said, my God, why have we been listening before? And then he said something else. He said, now we know what it feels like to be mistreated unfairly. We now know what oppression is, because as white people, we have never been forced into anything, especially by a minority person. And we feel now the unfairness of oppression. Now we think we know what it means to be black. My God. Suddenly I understood what I had done. I had reversed roles. And I became the white person, and they became the nigger. And then I explained to them, you know, I was sorry, shook their hands, we reconciled, and from that point on, they could react out of life and out of problems they saw with the insights of an oppressed person, and not as a white person who intellectually was free to say and to do what they want to say without understanding what they'd gone through. They emerged out of that experience with an understanding of what happens when you use your emotions instead of just your intellect.
872-0750 at 214. Marcel and Mableton, you're on with Dr. Charles King on WSB.
Dr. King, first of all, I'm surprised. I was born in Springfield, Ohio, too, so
yes.
I know what kind of town you're talking about. I'm amazed at, like, the white people that call up, you know, and they're always trying to tell us what our problem is.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed by that, because our basic problem is white prejudice and white attitude.
Precisely.
You know, and because the thing is, you ask everybody, you know, you ask any white person that calls, they're always saying, well, blacks, you know, they get preferential treatment because of affirmative action, all these other things. If we get so much preferential treatment, would they want to trade places with black people? No, they never would. And because, one, they wouldn't be able to deal or have the coping skills to deal with that white bias. And I think that is what is amazing. They always say that black, oh, you're racist, Dr. K, when you can't be. There's no way possible that a black person or a minority or anybody else can be racist.
Now, you defined, last time you were here, Dr. King, you defined racism. Why don't you do it again for all the new listeners we have? Basic definition.
Racism is not just an attitude, it's a pattern of behavior. In other words, if you belong to a majority group where all your customs, your habits, your traditions, your policies, your laws are all oriented around white male patterns, culture, etc. Our nation is both sexist and racist. That there's a white male that sets the standards for all of us. that makes most of us uncomfortable because we cannot be ourselves. We have to go in accordance with the policies of the majority. What if the majority rules, it means the minority must take up those things that are distasteful to them. Okay? So that's what racism is. Racism is the patterns, the habits, and the culture of a majority group that's nominally white male.
Which you gave the word power to before, right?
Prejudice plus power equals racism. That's why blacks cannot be racist. Maynard Jackson can't be racist. Because no matter what Maynard does, even though he's mayor, you still have the legislature and you still have the governor. You still have the president. You still have the Senate that could overrule anything any local black does that's adverse to white people. Therefore, blacks cannot be racist because you must be able to affect the white race.
Meaning you got to have power.
Precisely. To affect the white race. Not white persons, but the white race. We have no such power.
Thank you, Marcel, for the call. 217, you can agree or disagree at 872-0750. Westminster Live with Dr. Charles King on AM-750 WSB.
AM-750 WSB. Every morning when the first thing you want is...
With frequent weather updates, I'm meteorologist Kirk Mullish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
Bill is a first-time caller in Lithonia, on with Dr. Charles King here on AM-750 WSB. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, how you doing, Wes?
Good.
Dr. King, I feel like you're talking about your description of what you did in that classroom is nothing more than bluntly trying to bully a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. Now, when it comes down to reality, you can fight it all you want, but the fact is that every competent therapist knows, both black and white, what's going to make the difference in your community is when your people learn to take responsibility for themselves and stand up and not let guys like you
all right,
lie to them and try to make it
let him
like...
respond, Bill.
I don't want to respond to him.
Nothing?
Well, in the first place, when I did that class with a bunch of bullies, I want you to read what the president of American Express says about what I do. The banking officials, I deal with the CIA. I deal with large corporations who have changed their policies because of my bullying. So it wasn't just a bunch of kids in school.
Woven in his statement there was the issue of taking responsibility for one's actions. How do you deal with that kind of issue?
It's unfair to break a man's leg and then criticize the way that he limps. You got it? You could always find blacks failing in this, and blacks failing in that, and blacks not being able to do this, and blacks committing crime. And you can find a whole watch list of ills and wrongs that blacks go through. But the point I'm making is, if you break a man's leg, he's going to limp.
Fred on a Bell South car phone, first-time caller on AM-750 WSB. Thanks for the call.
Hi there.
Hi.
Dr. King, I was one of your students about 12 years ago.
Thank God.
And I wanted to call in because I am white.
Help me out here.
I'll
please.
help you out.
See, I already knew he was going to help me out, see.
Until you experience what he does in his classroom, I was in the Christ Urban, it was in Atlanta here. Until you experience it, you don't understand what it is to walk in the shoes of a woman or a black man and be discriminated against. I about ran out on his class after about 4 hours. And
You talk about the first 4 hours?
the first 4 hours, I thought I was going to die. Because nothing I said mattered. In other words, it wasn't right or wrong, it just didn't matter. And everybody in the room, it was the same way. After that, I came to understand what discrimination is. And because no matter what you say, whether it's good or bad, people have a discriminatory perspective. And after I learned that, it helped me communicate better with women or blacks or even whites. It didn't matter. You come to learn to take people where they're at. And then we do have responsibility. We have responsibility in employment or in jobs as bosses or just as neighbors.
Or as employees, just as a citizen, you have responsibilities.
Sure do. And it just changed my whole perspective, and I respect what he does. I know he and I had some personal talk out of the classroom, and in fact, we so happened to become neighbors. We didn't know we were going to be neighbors close by. But even where I go to church now is talking about this whole issue, and this is out in the south side of town, out in South DeKalb County, about whites and blacks living together. It is a different thing. There is a cultural difference. And we have to understand that there is a difference. And that takes away the fear. And I think most of us work out of a perspective of fear, the unknown. So I just want to make that positive comment. And it is some responsibility for each of us to look at ourselves. And then how can we help in the matter?
Appreciate the call, Fred.
You know, the funny thing, I don't know who this is. But when he said that he's been through my class, I immediately knew that he was going to be positive, see. Because I get a class of 30 people, and out of those 30 people, at least 29 of them are going to be totally positive. And that's what gives me the great joy, is the fact that people, if they stick with me long enough, like for the 2-day program, this is what happens. Not only, as he said, in matters of race, but in matters of your relationship to your wife, to your children, to people that aren't like you. You learn a lot about them. You learn to listen and to feel and to understand.
You mentioned a moment ago the definition, prejudice plus power equals racism. I heard in there, correct me if I'm wrong, that everybody is capable of being prejudiced, correct?
Yeah.
But not everybody is capable of having the power.
Precisely.
All right, Mike in Smyrna, you're on AM-750 WSB at 225.
Congratulations on another good show.
Thank you.
Dr. King, I had an opportunity in the past to work for recruiting for a Fortune 500 company, both black and white applicants, and it's interesting to see some of the damage of affirmative action from both sides of the aisle. And I use the word damage only in the sense that perception, particularly negative perceptions, are the kinds of things that when you couple that with a basic ignorance of who people are, it's a devastating thing to have happen. And a lot of what you hear, and on this talk show, people calling in, and a lot of what I hear in day-to-day reality is, for the most part, most white folks are culturally ignorant in terms of their real knowledge of who black people are.
Right.
They watch the news, they read the paper, and they may work with a couple of black associates, and automatically...
They know black persons, but not black people.
Exactly, and automatically they are experts on the culture.
Precisely.
And as a result, when you have policies that people tend to perceive as being damaging to them individually, naturally when you couple that with a just out-and-out ignorance, nothing positive is ever going to happen. So I guess my question for you, and I know you've been at this battle a long time, and I certainly admire your courage, is I really wonder if it's ever going to make that much of a difference in terms of the psyche of the kind of people you're dealing with.
That's a good question.
Oh, certainly. It makes a big difference. Here's the problem, and if I want white persons now to listen to what I'm getting ready to say.
Let me tell you what. Can I take a break right here and pay a bill, and then regroup, have more time?
No.
Well, I have to.
Okay.
And it'll give you time to really put it together. It's 228 Westminster with Dr. Charles King, always a delightful guest. Even if you don't agree with him, he will get you thinking here on AM-750 WSB. At 872-0750 or toll-free 1-800-WSB-TALK. Right before the break, Dr. King, there was a question from a caller who said, basically, will what you're doing make any kind of difference at all? And I asked you to hold your point so you'd have more time for it. Why don't you respond to his question?
Yes, I would like to really give each listener that is white a rundown on how racism starts with them, so they may be able to take corrective measures rather than just to say, I'm not a racist. Let me begin by first saying that most people, white, are decent, moral. They believe in rights. They believe in religion or the Bible and God, or people basically are good. But what is racism? Racism starts off at an early age, at the age of 3. When you look around you and you see someone that's different than your mother or your father or your brothers and sisters, you immediately conceive the idea of others. This happens at the age of 3. You suddenly become conscious of people who are not like you. Therefore, that's when prejudice starts. You then must start to prejudge who these people are. It doesn't mean that you don't like them. It doesn't mean that, that you don't want anything to do with it. It means that I wonder. I wonder. Then when you go to school, you learn about America. And you learn in the first grade, I pledge allegiance to the flag of one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. You believe that. Because you're so young that you're led to believe that liberty and justice is available for all people. Now, they taught that during the Civil War, when they still had slaves. And they taught that when schools were segregated. Well, they taught that when blacks were disenfranchised with the Dred Scott decision. White people learn early in life that this nation entitled everyone to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they believed that because it applied to them. And they gave no concept at all that this did not include others. Because others were penalized. And then what's further entrenched racism was the fact that when people came to these shores to be free, you taught them America is a great country because it offers opportunity. Therefore, you came here from these other countries. Give me your tired, your huddled masses yearning to be free. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Send them the helpless tempest tossed to me. Therefore, America became a melting pot, which further entrenched racism because now white people think this country is for everybody. But never did they consider the fact that black people were brought here in chains, not because they wanted to come like the foreigners. Never did they consider that black people were forced to pick cotton. There were laws that keep us from mixing with white people, that we were not allowed to go to school. We couldn't learn to read or to write as slaves. We couldn't talk even our native tongue. So blacks came to America, or brought to America, bused into America, disenfranchised to begin with. And then were made a subspecies, made only couldn't vote. And those white people who were Christians looked at black people and told their children something else that made them racist. Don't look down upon them, because they are just as good as we are. You get the point? Pay no attention to their color.
Well, the question then comes back to this.
And now young white people can't understand about discrimination because they've been discriminated.
I guess, the question was going to be, is it better today than it used to be? In the sense of understanding and breaking down the barriers?
It's better in sense of the white masses understanding inequity more so than it did before, by virtue of the laws, civil rights bills, voting rights. They understand this now. These things have been denied in the past. But what fools them, they think because the laws have outlawed all this, that things are better.
That the issue is gone. The conditions have changed, but they haven't.
Is very much still with us.
At 2:37, Darryl in Forest Park. You're on with Dr. Charles King here on WSB.
Yes, I have a lot of little doubt about what this guy's talking about. It don't make very much sense to me. He's saying blacks cannot be racist. What is Farrakhan? I'm a racist. And I do have a question I want to ask him before you cut me off.
Real quick.
It's blacks and white. You take a group of 4 people, 2 women, 2 men out of a black. One is white and one is black of each of those groups. And all of them jump in the pool. And when they come up, tell me why my hair is going to be beaded with water since I am black, and the white person's hair is going to be cleaved. And that makes you want to ask questions about yourself and other people. And one other thing, he said black racism. Now, I'm not knockout good looking, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm one of the ugly guys you ever can meet. But if a white woman ever come on to me, My racism is to reject her just because she's white. Thanks for your time.
He says blacks can be racist.
I said, what can Farrakhan do to white people?
What can Farrakhan do to white people?
I'll tell you that. What can he do to hurt white people? Farrakhan has an attitude. Attitudes will hurt nobody. Actions hurt people.
You told me
and
so.
Racism must include acts.
Do you take Farrakhan seriously?
No. I said, yes, I take him seriously. So I take any black person. I take this man seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. Every black person verbalizes an opinion out of his or her experience. So you'll find a whole variety of blacks saying different things because the problem affects us in different ways. So I respect every black man who has an opinion because he's been forced into that opinion. So I don't criticize him. I just say, well, that's the way he looks at it.
But it sounds like you want to work for a better America. You want to break down barriers. And
that's why I stick to what I do, to white institutions, and don't get mixed up in these different movements that other blacks are mixed up in.
So Farrakhan, who wants to take blacks out of America to a separate homeland somewhere, you won't favor that? Or you don't favor that?
No, I don't favor that. Listen, this is my home.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going?
Hopefully up. 21 minutes away from 3 o'clock, Dr. Charles King continues here on AM-750 WSB.
Steps up in the pocket, and he's going to throw to a man running down the middle. Long touchdown! Touchdown! Punt, and we rush him. And we got it! It's blocked! It's rolling! We pick it up! We're going to run and score! Touchdown!
Dr. Charles King's with us till 3 o'clock. He's got to catch a plane shortly thereafter, so we'll get as many calls on as we can and go to another cool payphone up in Marietta. Glen, you're on AM-750 WSB for first time. Thanks for calling.
Yes. I don't know if Charles remembers me, but I was in his seminar up in Dayton, Ohio, back about 1972.
Wow.
And in order to respond to some of the white people who were calling in, I would say that one of the cures for racism is Charles' seminar. If they could have the opportunity to attend one, they would see what he's trying to say, and it would turn them around, I think. It did me.
Do I remember you?
Yeah.
Who are you working with, please?
I was a teacher up in Ohio.
Oh, wow, yeah. With Wayne Carl?
Right.
Oh, wow.
Been a while.
Oh, bless you.
Well, and one of the things that I wanted to say, too, was your seminar helped me in that I later became a police officer down in Miami.
Oh, God.
And one of the first things that they asked me on my interview was, what is the biggest problem in America today? And my immediate response was racism.
They wouldn't hire you, huh?
Oh, yeah, they hired me. They wanted to know how I thought that would affect me with my other police officers. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, that's their problem. But it's been a while, and I've often wondered what happened to Charles.
Oh, here I am. Here I am. Got 1972.
Right.
Well, that's almost 20,
18 years.
18,
yeah. But I do know that what you do, Charles, does make a difference.
Thank you, sir.
And, it's stuck with me all these years, and I am, and another thing for the other white people who are listening, I am definitely not a liberal bleeding heart. But I do know that what you taught me, or what I learned in your seminar up there, has stayed with me and has given me a whole different outlook on the black perspective.
What are you doing here in the Atlanta area, Glenn? Are you
I work for a newspaper now.
Newspaper, okay. Well,
what newspaper you work with?
Which one?
Cherokee Citizen.
Okay, good. It's an up-and-coming paper up there in Cherokee County. Good to hear from you.
Because I deal with the local papers here.
Yeah, you do. You deal with the Atlanta Journal and Constitution, right?
For Cox people.
Bill in Southwest Atlanta, you're on AM-750 WSB with Charles King.
Okay, Dr. King, after listening to so many people call in the last hour and a half, especially one gentleman that called before 2 o'clock, I'm convinced that some of these people are aware of the situation, but they just simply don't want to change. Mm-hmm. He was alluding to about what do we want and why do we have so much crime and stuff, but I haven't heard any white called in today who said that back in 1959, I was working for a company. I was CEO. I strived to try to give blacks comparable jobs with whites. I hear none of this, you know. When I had to go to school wearing second-hand passed-down football uniforms, 5-year-old books in school, second-hand school buses, I didn't see any whites in the South clamoring to say, let us get these blacks new buses and new uniforms and new books. I didn't hear these people, but these people now are so concerned about affirmative action that we are being mistreated in this country, yet when the time was ripe 25 years ago, some of these same individuals who are still in the workforce did absolutely nothing. They went with the flow of the public sentiment in the South, which was separation and segregation.
Thank you very much. You know, what's ironic here, like I was trying to say to you a minute before, the white people, white persons rather, are more concerned with whites possibly not getting equal fair play than they are with the knowledge that blacks don't get fair play. And that's really not American. It's really not American to believe, and that's why this country operates with such hypocrisy. Look now at the Gulf crisis. Why are we in the Gulf? Because the president says we are not going to sit by and watch another country's rights be trampled. If you can feel that kind of anger in a nation because of the way it has treated another nation, why can't you transfer that anger from a people whose rights have been trampled and you are responsible for them being trampled? You see how black folks look at that? It's so puzzling to know how you can get your emotions and your thoughts on such diverse tracks that you refuse to deal with logic or reason.
Will in Norcross, you're on AM-750 WSB. Thanks for the call.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
Okay, my question is, do you think that black people are ready to be treated equally, or should we be nursed into health? And if we are, then will the product of that nursing or that care, will it be white or black or a combination of the both?
It's what we call an intellectual question that need not be able to explain. I don't have to explain nothing like that. Even though the question, I know what you mean by it, but that's just a question that leads nowhere. Treat me right, period, and don't worry about anything else.
But aren't you concerned that we do not lose our heritage or our...
That has nothing to do with you treating me right.
I understand that.
Just let me be.
I understand that.
Okay, if you understand that, then there's no need for another question.
Do you understand my question at all?
Well, let's try it one more time.
Okay. I'm asking you, do you think that we are ready to be treated equally? We as black people. I am a black man.
Are you ready to take your next breath?
Excuse me?
Are you ready to take your next breath?
Yes, I am.
Well, we stand ready for anything that's productive.
Do you think blacks as a society?
Don't withhold anything from me because you think I'm not ready to be treated right.
Okay. This is, the question is, I believe that we are. And the reason I ask...
Well, certainly, but don't ask a rhetorical question like that because it's confusing.
Well, the reason I ask, sir, is because all of a sudden, if we were to experience freedom as blacks, or as whites experience it, what will we do with it? Are we ready to experience this type of thing, or have we been suppressed so long that
Well, like during the slavery time, let's go back to the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, blacks ran all over the South shouting and screaming. And some blacks didn't believe it. They stayed on the plantation and wouldn't leave there because they were afraid of freedom because they didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
So you'll find all kind of mixed feelings among blacks when they're given an opportunity. You follow? So just look for that and just look for that, differences. Okay.
Appreciate the call, Will.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. 10 minutes away from 3 o'clock, 48 the current temperature in the city. Back with some final calls and comments from Dr. Charles King, the author of his book, the book called Fire in My Bones. It's published by Urban's. It's available at bookstores all across. He's also the president and founder of the Urban Crisis Center here in Atlanta, served on the President's Commission with President Johnson in 67, was it? 1967? 1967. And lives right here in Atlanta. I'm Wes Minter. Let's go to the Weather Center. Quick check on that with Kirk Mellish. Thanks, Kathy. Let me give you a phone number if you're interested in information on attending one of Dr. Charles King's seminars. Here in Atlanta, his number at the Urban Crisis Center is 753-4920, 753-4920. They'd be happy to ship some information out to you. Chip in Kennesaw, first-time caller on AM-750 WSB. Thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Dr. King, I've got two things, and I'll try to make it as quick as possible.
All right.
I live up in Waleska. I'm in Kennesaw right now, and my landlords happen to be black. They own a lot of property up there, and they're well-respected. And I get the opportunity to sit down and talk to her, so I know, and I've heard how she's been through, and her daughters have all been through a terrible turmoil, but they've managed to pick themselves up and move ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that my landlord says, that how they did it was through the family, and said that if, no matter what the minority is, but if they have a strong family background, that they pick themselves up and move ahead. It might not be their generation, but their next generation will have a better life.
Right.
My second comment is I'm a father, and I have 3 children, and I'm trying to go through college myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to live in Louisiana, and I applied for a grant at the time, and it asked for what race you are. And I put Caucasian down. I was rejected. I applied for it again, and instead of putting Caucasian, I put black down, and I was accepted. I did this on 2 grants on 2 different years, and both times I was accepted when I put down that I was black instead of white.
I don't respect you, sir. I don't respect you at all.
Pardon?
I do not respect you.
Well, sir, that's the only way I could figure to go to college. I'm trying to better myself and my family.
Come on, man. Come on. You know, there are thousands of whites who get grants every year, millions of them. And very few blacks get the grants. So you would dare abuse black in order to get to college by making me think the whites don't have a chance? For shame, sir. You owe blacks and yourself and your family an apology.
Debbie in Fayetteville, you're on AM-750 WSB with Dr. Charles King.
Yes, thank you so much. Very. White people, because we're conservative. My husband and I are very conservative, yet we just moved to Atlanta less than a year ago. We had a ministry to inner city youth for 8 years at Christmas time, my husband and I together. We moved to Atlanta because my husband was hired by Secretary Jack Kemp with HUD, and he's developed a program that is may go nationwide.
All right, Debbie, sake of time here, let him respond to your point, because you're asking him which white people.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you're excluded. We're talking about white society. Always remember, when I say white people, I'm talking about white society, not white individuals.
So you'd like to see more people like them, more white people like them get involved.
But I don't like to see people like them criticize me for saying I'm blaming them and they're not to blame. Why don't you blame white society like I am doing?
Gene in Woodstock, going to have to be our last call here on AM-750 WSB with Dr. Charles King. Hi.
I feel so special.
I'm glad you waited so long.
Dr. King, I'm just calling to tell you I admire you. I wish there were more individuals on this planet like you, and I think you're just a wonderful human being. I agree with everything you say. I think it's great, and I'm proud of Mr. Mentor for getting someone as good as you are to come on his talk show. We need people like you more.
I'm flattered. We need more people like Mr. Mentor, too.
Yes, we do.
Because at least he's open to a lot of things. He just begs me to bring him into one of my seminars. And I told him he really doesn't have to come to a seminar now. He's already been through one.
I've been through day 1 and part of 2, I think.
Well, you know, I think he's starting to change a little bit.
Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have. I listen to him all the time, and I don't agree with everything he says, but I notice there's just a little bit more of an open mind going on out
Well,
there.
even here, a lot of times I say some things, and he leans back in his chair and he says, "Oh yeah, I see that. I understand."
Now, well, at least we're in day number 2, Gene.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make him a Negro lover.
Ooh.
And then he'll be condemned by all the people out in Marietta.
Oh, my goodness.
Gene, y'all got me blushing. Thanks a lot.
Oh, no.
Take care of yourself.
Okay,
At least
you
we
too.
got your sheet
Bye-bye.
off.
I never wore one. Thank you for coming in here today. I appreciate it very, very much. Have a safe trip as you're traveling today. And we have another hour. We'll open it up. If you want to talk about what you've heard or other issues, 872-0750 is the number.
I saw him last week. I told him, Doc, every day I wake up, I look in the mirror, I want to throw up. What's wrong with me? He said, I don't know, but your eyesight is perfect. Now, one time I called him, I swallowed a bottle of sleeping pills. He told me to have a few drinks and get some rest. He didn't help me lose weight either. He told me to run 5 miles a day for 2 weeks. I called him up. I said, Doc, I'm 70 miles from my house.
Well, welcome back, fun seekers. Hour number 3 of the West Winter Talk Show, live from Atlanta on the 4th of December, 1990, on AM-750 WSB. Passing out condoms in New York City schools, high schools, over 260,000 high school students in New York City. And the school honcho up there, they call him the Chancellor. Mr. Joseph Fernandez is going to ask the Board of Education to approve the distribution of condoms at 120 area high schools. What kind of message does that say to the young person? You tell me. Our phone number is 872-0750 or toll-free 1-800-WSB-TALK. Oh, just a minute. Hold on. Attention, Cobb County. Attention, Cobb County. Landfill alert. Landfill alert. That's right. I am told, and there was a story in the news earlier today, that this coming Tuesday, the Cobb County Commission could be selecting its new landfill site. Just a nice little holiday present for the Cobb County homeowners. Are you that concerned up there in Cobb County? I mean, are you really that concerned? Are you really that upset enough to where you would make a phone call to the Cobb County Commission? I called one time Harriet Smith's office. Never got through. Now, she's lame duck. She's on her way out. She happens to be my commission person. But are you going to call the commission office? Let them know how you feel? You're going to let them know, hey, if you're going to have this meeting on Tuesday, do we get a chance to speak out? Or are they just going to arbitrarily kind of, they might as well, you know the way some of these commissions do things, they might as well get a big hat and put all the decisions in the hat and then stick their hand down in the hat and pull out the, and, oh, here's what we'll do. Hey, Baker Road. Yeah, that's where it'll go. Pittner Road. Yeah. And some of you have been hanging over for Dr. Charles King. I will tell you, as politely as I can, he's left the building. Now, he's had to make a flight. So we can continue to talk about that or other issues. I do want your opinion on condoms being distributed in high schools. What's next? Special cots? Carol in Kennesaw, first-time caller on AM-750 WSB. Glad to have you here.
Yes, I'm calling about Mr. King.
Yes, ma'am.
I think he's the most hypocritical bag of wind I've ever heard. He, as long as black people like him sit and say, white people do this and white people think this, as long as they think of themselves and separate like that, they're only hurting themselves. As long as they think of black first and American second, and when they want to just be people, that's when it's going to work. But when they turn everything into, that's the racist thing he could do, is say white people think this and white people think that. And as long as they turn everything into that kind of issue, we'll never get anywhere. And the thing about applying for schools, and he just says, oh, white people get money all the time. That's the biggest bunch of bull it is. I have a child in college, and we have everything we have borrowed against to get my child as far as we can, and we still got another year to go.
Mm-hmm.
And every thing that we apply to for loans or grants or aid, it honestly boils down to, if my child was black, we could get some money, or minority, not just black, but any minority. But because we're middle American white people, we just have to do it the best way we can. And as long as people like him want to say that, they just stir things up by saying white people think this and white people think that. They make it worse.
And you take that personally.
I do.
Yeah. See, and what he's trying to say, and whether he succeeds in communicating the message or not, what he's trying to say is, Carol, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about white society. And that's where I think white people do take it very personal, because they say, well, no, wait a minute, I'm part of that society.
Right.
That's me you're talking about. What do you believe?
That makes him just as bad as the white bigots that get out here and parade against just because somebody's black.
Absolutely.
As long as they say black first and American second, we'll never get anywhere.
Well, and I appreciate your call and your comments, because I think there's a lot of people that share them. I think when we talk about this issue of racism, and again, you may have noticed there that as the program progressed, I'm not going to win any ground from Charles King. And he's not going to win a whole lot on my ground. I think nobody wins that kind of a contest. I am oftentimes surprised when some statistics are thrown out, when you try to refute statistics or counter statistics with other statistics, that they're not welcome. Earlier in the program, he had talked about money in the inner city. And I wanted to respond with some statistics from a council person in Detroit. He didn't want to hear those statistics. But from what I read, and everything I read isn't written by Senator Jesse Helms, for those of you who may be wondering, okay? When I read things from all sorts of agencies, whether it's HUD or whether it's think tanks across this country, I'm finding a fact, and it is a fact, that a growing number of black Americans are succeeding. I'm hearing this from black people as well. You can almost pick up any demographic research today and find that the black middle and upper classes are expanding as nearly 10% of black families had incomes. This is between a study of 87 and 88 recent years. Nearly 10% of black families in those 2 years had incomes exceeding $50,000 a year. It's the highest percentage ever. The average black family in which both husband and wife work now earns 88% of what its white counterparts make. And that gap is closing quickly. Now, we can throw numbers out till we all turn into a poinsettia. The fact of the matter is, are we willing to accept statistics, or and in the process of giving statistics, do we want to create an environment that is equal for all? Or do we only want a playing field where only our statistics, whoever you are, and put your name in the spot where only our statistics mean anything? And I think when you consider racism as an issue in the 1990s, we're confronted with two camps. Both, by the way, I think treat minorities very badly. The one hand, we have the sick, tormented mind of the traditional white racists, the KKK, the skinheads, the white order, these white supremacists. They consider all non-whites dangerous and inferior. That's the one extreme. On the other, we see the well-meaning, guilt-ridden, leftist liberal in this country who takes great pride in putting out policies and social programs that have helped, what I believe, decimate a generation of inner city Americans, primarily people of color. And today's left-wing policies unconsciously treats minorities as if they were incompetent and stupid, unable to succeed on their own merit. So we're going to come out with a federal program to help you along, push you along. I can't think of anything more highly offensive to any self-respecting American, regardless of their status, their creed. It's a slap in the face. What a slap in the face to say to a minority, we don't think you can make it, so we're going to give you a program to help you along. What a slap in the face. Mark is first-time caller in Jonesboro on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good.
One question I was hoping to get to with Dr. King, but of course he left, was in today's society, which way and in what way have the blacks not been created equal or treated equal? In which way? It's the black society that's keeping the racism at issue.
No, and I just said there's two areas. It's
right,
not
exactly.
just the black society keeping race an issue.
Right.
There's a lot of whites that keep racism as an issue.
Exactly. So what's the difference between the NAACP and the Ku Klux Klan? And what my area of thinking is that a couple weeks ago, South Georgia, Sheriff's Department handled a case involving vandalism on a black woman's car. She called them country bumpkins. All right, and then you got these Riverdale officers that stated the word nigger. Who's right? NAACP raised all sort of cane against the Riverdale officers that march. I didn't hear them say anything when she called the deputies country bumpkins. Who's keeping it at issue? So we're both people are guilty. Both parties are just as guilty as the other. When you go to war, is there racism with a guy next to you carrying the same rifle fighting for the country? No. There's no racial issue in the military during time of war, but you come back home and you got to fight another war. So what's the difference?
I read something here recently from a writer from the Washington Post, William Raspberry, a Pulitzer. I believe he's a Pulitzer. He's won some other journalistic awards I know of. And he says that when people believe that their problems can be solved, they tend to get busy solving them, partly because it is the natural thing to do, and partly because they would like to have the credit. When people believe that their problems are beyond solution, they tend to position themselves so as to avoid blame for their non-solution. Words to be thinking about, and I thank you for the call very much, Mark. It's 3:19.
AM-750 WSB Skycopter Skyplane Traffic Reports. There is a difference. We fly more hours than any other station, and no one else has their own helicopter and airplane. Skycopter and Skyplane Traffic only on AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
Shine a light on me. Keep your Bud Light shining for everyone to see. Cuts clean till your thirst never leaves you flat. I shine it on the others with the Bud Lights at, yeah. You can taste it, you can feel it, you know you got it right. 'Cause everything is, it's just a lie. Bud Light's clean, fresh taste won't fill you up and never lets you down. And only one light beer tastes so right. Bud Light. Keep your Bud Light shining. Keep it shining on. Everything else. Keep your Bud Light shining. Keep it shining on. Everything else. Keep your Bud Light shining. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
And how will the people of Venus get your phone number, Claude?
I'm using some very powerful mirrors, Norm, aimed right at the planet itself.
Mirrors. In case you've just joined us, we're talking today with Codaphone customer Claude Basket, who's helping to make telephone contact with the planet Venus.
I have sent them a simple message in Morse code. People of Venus, call Claude, I mean no harm, followed by my area code and number.
Yeah, and when that phone call comes, we're proud that you've chosen a Codaphone cordless telephone to receive it.
Yeah, I like the cordless model because I can just carry out here to the garden and I don't have to hang around inside, waiting for that call from Venus.
Yeah, plus the Codaphone cordless is reliable.
Very, yes.
Codaphone's been making telephone products since 1958.
I know that, and I'm sure the Venusians will be impressed when they do call.
Well, they haven't actually...
Well, no, but it's summer up there, Norm, and, with vacations, kids out of school.
Yeah, I guess it gets kind of warm.
Yeah, around 12,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, there you have it. Codaphone helping to bring the universe closer together.
Daughter, say 15 years old, came home from school, say within the next 30 minutes, assuming you're at home or you talk to them tonight at dinner, and they were to say to you, hey, guess what, Dad? Guess what, Mom? They want to start passing out condoms in high school. Yeah, they're going to give us condoms. We got this special condom center that we're going to go to, and we're going to get condoms in high school. They're going to do what? They're passing out condoms? Why? Well, so we don't get AIDS. Now, you may think that's stupid. You may think that's funny, and Wes is just trying to stoke the flames again. But, hey, that's a proposal they want to do in New York City. Yeah, it was New York City. But is it Atlanta next? You know how things like this happen? Because good parents and good adults, for that matter, and good students, too, let's not leave them out, don't get involved. Rather than passing out condoms, making condoms available, whatever happened to try and instill within our young people a little bit of common sense regarding abstinence? Sharon in Atlanta, first-time caller on AM-750 WSB. Hi.
Yes, Wes.
Hi.
Hi. This is Sharon. I was raised in Selma, Alabama, which is kind of one of the hotbeds of the civil rights movement.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Well, being someone who has lived there, of course, I'm 29, and I wasn't exactly real old enough to know what was going on at the time the real things were going on. I was still raised in it. And Selma has always been kind of strange. Now, in the last year or so there's been kind of like a militant black group that's come in and taken over the schools.
What do you mean, a gang?
Well, sort of. They call themselves BEST, which is something to do with the education system.
What does it stand for? Blacks Educating something?
I wish I could even remember. I don't live there anymore, but I have a kid sister that was drawn into the middle of it because I have a 14-year-old sister who was going to public schools and perfectly happy in public schools. And then the black thing kicked up. These people came in and they started marching through the schools. Day and night, they camped outside of the schools. There was nothing you could do to stop them.
Stop them doing what? From marching up and down the hallways?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there is. There's something
They were scaring the fool out of the kids.
Are these students in the school?
No, they were not, is what the funny thing was. They were not kids from the schools. A lot of them were never graduates of the schools.
Why didn't somebody just pick up the phone? You know, we have these things called telephones. Pick up the phone, call the local police, and say, get these guys out of here.
They had court orders. They had everything
forget the court orders. These guys are disrupting a school.
They could not stop them. Didn't you see it in the national news?
I guess I did and forgot it because nothing's coming to my mind. No.
And it's still going on now. The Selma schools went from being 70% black to now they're 90% black because the majority of the white kids that could afford to have drawn out and gone into the private school systems, which my parents were some of the last ones to take my kid sister out, but they finally had no choice. The kid was scared to death.
Well, I tell you, and not all kids are scared to death. I'm sure teachers are scared to death. And other
they
adults.
lost some of their best teachers.
Well, again, Sharon, there's a simple answer to this. If those people are terrorizing and breaking laws, you lock them up.
Well, they could
and
not
somebody's
do that.
fault. Well, what do you mean they cannot do that?
They tried
sure they
to
can.
do this. They went with court orders. If they took them into jail, they were given police brutality and all kind of stuff.
Oh, well, it sounds like to me the officials of Selma, Alabama, need to get a little closer to the situation. There are rules and laws prohibiting all kinds of loitering, terrorism, vandalism on schools, and if these guys are... This sounds like a Gray B movie. Are you jerking my chain?
I am not
Come on.
jerking your chain.
This sounds like a movie you might see on 11:30 at night where the hoodlums are taking over the school.
I had family members in the middle of it. It was all over the national news.
Yeah, I tell you, send me some...
Still, what most people don't know is that it is still happening now. And most of the black people are not happy with it either.
Well, I guarantee you a lot of the white people wouldn't be happy about it either. If you got something on there, send it to me. I'd love to see it. And if I see something across, I'll certainly check it out. They're coming to a school near you.
You're hearing local issues.
I want to say a special word to former Governor Lester Maddox and his wife. Glad to hear they were not harmed in that fire in their home last night. As if he doesn't have enough opportunities on his hands, he's battling the Cobb County Commission, who wants to pay him a paltry sum for his land in East Cobb County on Johnson's Ferry Road. They want to, here's a little token amount, and then his house catches on fire last night. But Governor, glad to know that you guys were not injured and that you're doing okay. And the best way to handle this Klan story that Lee just touched on is just ignore it. Ignore that group. It's the best way. Nick in Atlanta, you're on AM-750 WSB. Hello.
Yeah, Wes, I wanted to make a comment earlier about what Dr. King said in regard to black people not being afraid of being in downtown cities.
Yes.
And that's not true. I think that, at least speaking from my own personal standpoint, that when you look at the fact that the number of black people who are victimized by crime, black-on-black crime, is probably higher than any other type of crime. So therefore, we are more likely to be victims of crimes. And as a point of fact, there's a misperception by a lot of white people that think that they are in danger because of the perceived rage or racism, as they may call it, that some black people may exhibit. But the fact of the matter is, a white person is probably safer coming downtown by using the facts than black folks are. And I think that we, as a black people, are judged by what a few black people do in terms of white folks, and they just assume that all black people are the same.
Amen, brother. I will agree. In fact, I wanted to get into that with Dr. King, but we had so many people on hold. I wanted to get into a situation like the Red Oak shooting.
Right.
You know, I wanted to bring that up, but I couldn't get to it, and in a way, I regret not doing it now, and I totally underscore and support what you have to say.
Right.
Have a good day.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Toni, first-time caller in Ellenwood on AM-750 WSB. Hi.
Hi. You made a statement earlier about it being an insult of the government by saying that they have to help a minority group along because it's like saying that they can't help themselves.
I think it's an insult when they come along and they sit there and they say, listen, you're not quite qualified, you're not quite capable here. Here's a social program to help push you along. I think that's a total insult to the individual, yes.
But if you've been kept so far behind for so long, and it's like I would say that white people have had a lead at like you a 100-yard dash, and the white people have had a 50-yard lead all along, and so.
You think that's true today, Toni?
Today, yes, because we haven't. There's a total race we haven't caught up at all. It's not where it should be because it's.
Where should it be? Well, see, I disagree. I think you had an argument for that several years ago, but you don't have a valid argument today to say that you're still 50 yards behind.
Things have changed, yes, but it's not where it should be.
Well, why don't you tell me where it should be? Explain to me where you think it should be, because we're missing something here. See, I applauded the veto of the Civil Rights Act of 1990, and we started off our program today with Dr. King on that very bill, and I called it a quota bill. He said he was opposed to quotas, but it wasn't a quota bill, so we immediately started at an impasse, okay? I believe that the law that was created in 1964, the law that we call the Civil Rights Act of 1964, was the appropriate law for all employers and all citizens. Okay, now I don't think it's appropriate for the federal government, but that's a different argument. We have the law, so let's live with it. But what's happened as a result of that law has been what I call the crime of affirmative action. Now, Dr. Charles King will call that a firm action. Okay, he breaks down the word, and you can discuss that. But as I look at affirmative action, Toni, whether you want to talk about it today or 20 years ago, I look at it as an underlying premise, and the underlying premise is that rights belong to a group as opposed to the individual. And that is totally contrary to the Constitution, and it's a very, if you want to get radical, it's a very Marxist ideology to say that a group deserves more than an individual. Our Constitution guarantees Toni and Wes and Amy and every other American citizen God-given rights. And to throw that out the window and to come up with a program that says now we're going to give the group rights that discriminates against another group, I think not only flies in the face of the Constitution, it's a slap on individual liberty, and that's what I oppose. And that's why I say with all of the laws we have coming, and you can put the Civil Rights Act of 1990 right at the top there, it seems to me that we continually have federal intrusion into the private lives of Americans when opportunities ought to be recognized by everybody, not by a government. Not by a government that's also capable of taking it away from you.
But don't you think that affirmative action have placed blacks in prominent positions now?
Yes, it has placed blacks in permanent positions. Yes, I do agree it's done that. Has it always been right? No, it hasn't.
But if it wasn't for that, then black people wouldn't be in the position that they are now in the 80s and 90s. If it wasn't for affirmative action having taken place back in the 60s.
Well, you start talking about, the college situation. Why can't we, and I don't have the answer to this. I mean, you raise a question that I'm not sure I have the answer for, because at one time in this country, overnight employers and universities and everybody else was required by law to promote according to certain rules and regulations as opposed to what is right. And by that, what I mean is opposed to performance and ability. And give you a good example, Toni. Are you familiar with testing where there was a case and the Supreme Court ruled on this where I believe it was policemen and firemen, whites had to score a certain score on the test and Hispanics and blacks had a different score?
No, I don't think that's correct. I don't think that blacks should be accepted.
But that's what, you see, now I'm trying to bring it home to a real-life situation because that's what federal laws cause. They cause a different playing field.
Well, I mean, in education-wise, they take SAT scores and everything. I think that it's different for SAT scores that get into colleges than it would be for a job, because overall, white students have always had an opportunity to get into universities and colleges, whereas black students have not because of cultural differences and economical differences. And the lady earlier was talking about that black students can get money anytime they want to, and I'm a black college student at University of Georgia, and I'm black, but I don't receive any aid, and I don't qualify because you have to, if you're a minority and you want to get aid or a grant or anything like, if you want to get aid, you have to have a 3.5 or 1,200 on the SAT score, and the average white student doesn't have a 3.5 when they graduate, or 1,100 SAT score.
Yeah.
And then if you're a minority, you have to be either poor, to get aid, or exceptionally bright.
Well, and I'm glad to hear what you're saying. It's about the testing thing, because it's refreshing to know that you do not support the kind of thing that yesteryear's pseudo-psychologists put out there. I'll never forget reading something by Walter Williams, the black economist up in Washington, D.C., who said that he was using this testing thing as an example, and he was quoting some of these psychologists, and they said that he called them well-meaning people, and he said there was no difference between actions of the New York City authorities, I was talking about that testing up there, and the statements of pseudo-psychologists. Pseudo-psychologists had said, and I quote from Walter Williams, that it is unfair to hold Negroes accountable to the same standards of conduct as whites since they had not achieved the same level of civilization. And he's using that statement, Walter Williams I'm talking about here, I'm quoting from, using that statement and the difference in testing and the difference of scoring levels in the New York City police is saying, in effect, it's okay to ask a white, quote, what's the square root of 16, but it's racist to ask a black the same question. And you see, we need to get rid of these different distinctions, deal with one level playing field, and deal with it without federal intrusion, which only warps the cause, doesn't correct it. You made some good points, so I'm glad to hear from you.
Okay.
Good luck to you in school, too.
Thanks.
Is this what I believe completely, well, I just do not agree with school systems. I don't care where they are. I guess 20% of them in America do this, pass out condoms in high school clinics. Well, Well, they want to do just go a little bit farther in New York City. They want to go ahead and just pass out condoms to the kids. Parents don't even know about this. Just pass them out. And you may have an opinion on it one way or the other. Scott's a first-time caller from Atlanta on AM-750 WSB. Hello.
Hi, I think that it's probably smart to do what they're doing.
They're talking about the condoms?
Yeah, I think that...
What's smart about it?
What's smart about it is, I mean, you know, I've been hearing for... I went through high school when I graduated in '86.
Mm-hmm.
People have been, you know, teaching kids abstinence, you know.
Right.
So they've been doing that for I don't know how long.
I'm not sure you can teach it, but I think you can encourage it.
Well, you know, and we encourage it, and teen pregnancy keeps going up. And you have the threat of AIDS. I mean, preaching abstinence doesn't work. It's been proven not to work when you just look at what's happening to society.
Well, no, wait a minute. Hold on. That doesn't prove it hasn't worked. To sit there and say teen pregnancy has gone up does not prove that abstinence is wrong or doesn't work.
Well, I'm not saying that it's wrong.
I mean, we disagree because I think condoms encourage more sexual activity than discourage it.
Well, you can, you know, and I can see how you would say how that would, you know.
Hey, what else do you use a condom for? Wear it on your thumb?
Well, no, I don't. At least I wouldn't. But,
no, of course not.
Well,
so
no,
it encourages more activity.
We keep encouraging abstinence, and then we have kids getting AIDS. Kids are gonna, you know, if they're gonna do it, they're gonna do that.
I will not argue with you on that.
No matter what you say. And so if we hold back, you know, even education on birth control, which a lot of school systems don't even teach that, we keep having kids getting in the trouble they're getting into, teen pregnancy, AIDS now, you know, venereal disease, and...
Scott, I know I'm in the minority on this. I really do. I know I'm not the majority thinker when it comes to holding back.
I don't
I'm not saying
you're minority.
Well, no, I think I am. I really think more people, and I'm not saying that makes you better or less. I'm not indicating that at all. I happen to think I'm probably more old-fashioned on this. I come from the old school, and I just don't think condoms are right. Now, I know that today's generation of kids are saying, Wes, you know, I listen to you, I like your show, but on this one, man, you know, you're out of it. Come on.
Well, you know, you got these
That's
kids
okay.
in high school. I mean, they're at the point now that a lot of them can vote. A lot of them, if we go have a draft, they're going to go to war, have to kill people, and we're still thinking, you know, that they're not smart enough to, you know, to be able to handle this kind of a thing, or at least have it discussed with them. If their parents won't do it, then we don't want the school systems to do it. So they're going to keep going out and getting in all this trouble because we just decide, well, we don't want to deal with it.
See, and there you've hit on it. We know the problem. Nobody's got the intelligence to want to deal with it up front. Everybody wants to hide from it. Do you remember the first time your father or mother, I'm not sure which one, told you about the birds and the bees?
They never did.
They didn't?
No, I learned about it elsewhere.
It's interesting. I remember my dad told me. He told me at work. He owned his own business.
Yeah.
And I remember he just sat down and my dad told me, and I can remember to this point. But I'll bet you today, the reason I asked, I'll bet there's a lot more people like you than me.
Yeah, well,
where their
I think
parents
I was the
never
first
told
one.
them.
I think I learned about it from my parents thought I would. You know, because I had heard people talk about it and pretty much knew what was going on, but like fourth grade. You know, when I was really young, and I don't think they thought I was going to be ready to learn about it, so I talked to them first about it. Then they discussed it with me, but it wasn't like they sat me down and said, you know, here's this and this. You know, I mean, I went to school system in Kansas City. They taught sex education in 6th grade.
Yes.
So, I mean, you know, that's where I...
Well, you can't be all that bad, because that's one of my favorite cities, Kansas City.
I love Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, coming from Des Moines, we used to drive there for action.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, take care.
You too, Al.
All right, man. 9 minutes away from 4 o'clock. More calls coming up at 872-0750. First, a check on this. How you doing?
All right. How you, Al?
Okay, sir.
The comment I had, a couple here, concerning Dr. King. We own a small trucking company in Conyers, and in the last year, Wes, we have had over 100 applicants. And out of those, only 4 have been black. We have hired 2 of these. And the reason the other 2 weren't hired is because they were unqualified. And the question I had, he was talking about blacks do not have the same opportunity as whites, and that the white society has created this. You know, why just 4 applicants out of 100? You know, where are they? If they want to work, if they want to get out of the ghettos, if they want to get off of welfare, why do we not have more applicants?
I can't answer your question. I don't know. Let me. You had 100 applications for how many job openings?
Well, this is 100 over the last year. It's sometimes we may have 4
the obvious
openings.
question. You know what I'm going to ask you? You hired 2 people of color. How many white people have you hired in the same period of time?
We have 25 drivers at a time. That's our top limit, 25. And at any one time, you know, we may have 4 openings. We try not to have any openings, but, you know.
So recently, when you had these 4 openings, 2 of the 4, 50%, you filled with black applicants, is what you said.
No, sir. I just hired my second black man this morning, as a matter of fact.
Okay. I can't answer your question. Again, I think we get bogged down on debating what color we should hire.
Absolutely.
As opposed to what qualified person should we hire. And that's why I say there are a lot of good qualified minorities out there. There's tons of them out there, and they're getting more and more jobs more often. I just read some statistics a moment ago that supports that. And I don't know. The ones that maybe they don't want to go to Conyers and work. I don't know.
Right.
But the best thing you can do, I think, and you don't need me telling you this, is you got to make the opportunities available and as wide known to everybody so that you can grab from the largest pool of qualified people.
Right. And one other comment here quick, Wes. We applied for a small business loan here a year ago, and we were flat rejected. And the reason given to us by the Small Business Administration is that we were not a minority. So we did not qualify for a small business loan.
Well, I've been involved in businesses and developing one out west right now myself with some other people. And if I ever get a government agency, I hope I don't have to do that. But sometimes I think I'll do that and have them turn me down just so I can thumb my nose at them and say, good, watch us win anyway. Take care of yourself. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Steve in Atlanta, you're on WSB. Hi.
Well, how you doing?
Okay, sir.
Just because I, as a white man, do not want to attend one of Charles King's seminars.
It's totally your right.
And be brainwashed and indoctrinated to feeling guilty does not make me a racist. And if he thinks that only white people in the city feel fear of crime, then I suggest he talk to some of the blacks in the housing projects.
Like Red Oak?
Yeah. And the one thing I do not understand, now this is the second time I've heard this man on your show. You've made a lot of good comments to callers here. I wish you had said those things to him. I don't understand why you let this man get on your show and browbeat you the way he does.
He didn't browbeat me. As I said in the beginning, he didn't gain any ground with me, and I didn't gain a whole lot with him.
Wes, my friend, if you will listen to the tape, you had plenty. I mean, you tried to get in a word edgewise a number of times, and he did everything but tell you to shut up. You were trying to make sense with this man. And he would not listen to you. He only listened to what he wanted to listen to. If you ever have him on your show again, please don't do that. Make the man listen to you. It's your show.
Anything else?
I enjoy your show, Wes, but like I said, I mean,
well, let me, Steve,
if you're going to have a two-way conversation with the man, you have to get in, what you want to say, too.
I appreciate your call.
Sure.
Thank you very much. There wasn't any browbeating going on, but there was a whole lot of fun going on. Thanks a lot for listening. Gary McKee up next. Back with you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.